Okay, so let me know in the comments who's here. You know, I always feel silly just talking to the computer screen. It's nice to have Amber to chat to as well, but I love to feel your presence, to know you're here, to know that we are a community and that we're all doing this together. Claire, good morning, my lovely. So we are going to dive straight in. Welcome to today's weekly live show here in the Yoga Teacher Collaborative. As you know, my name is Laura Green. I am a yoga teacher, a teacher trainer, and a business mentor for yoga teachers. But today is actually a guest session with a writing educator who I'll introduce in a moment, called Amber Badger. But first I wanted to look at why are we doing today's session. So exactly a week ago, last Friday, I had a little bit of a rant. Let's be honest, I had a little bit of a rant about the sudden explosion of AI, artificial intelligence, around marketing small yoga businesses. You know, I don't know if you use any of the scheduling apps. I use an app called Later to schedule my social media posts. And I've noticed in there, it's already popping up saying, let AI generate this post for you. So I can't believe how quickly something that seems as new age as AI, you know, ChatGPT, all of these different systems have really quickly infiltrated small businesses. Now, as I said in my post, there is a place for AI. I have certainly used ChatGPT a couple of times for recipes. I use it to make the world's best ever cookies, but I do not use things like AI or ChatGPT for copywriting within my business. Why? Many reasons, and today isn't about AI, but because I think words are really, really important. And as a yoga teacher, you are marketing yoga. You are marketing yourself. And the words you use, along with the pictures you use, are what open a gateway. They open a portal for someone who has never considered yoga to suddenly think, oh, I might try yoga. We must never underestimate the power of words. Every time you speak a word, every time you write a word, be it privately in a journal, be it publicly on a Facebook page, a blog post, your website, words create a ripple effect. Words are spells. They have an effect. I remember when someone said to me, that's why spelling is called spelling, because words have magic. They are spells. And this is where your magic comes through. Now, in the comments on the post I put out last Friday, there was a reoccurring theme that people are turning to AI and ChatGPT because you're not feeling confident in your own writing, that you think AI is writing better for you, or you might start with the AI and then tweak it, but it seems to be coming from this place that you don't believe well enough, that's terrible use of language. You don't believe in your own writing skills. And Amber and I have been chatting, we will in a moment, but often people think writing is something you're good at or you're bad at, like art or like music. But yes, there is a natural love and a talent for words that some people are gifted with, and Amber absolutely is one of those. But equally, there's a skill, and all of us can learn a skill. We can get better at something, and we only get better at it by going, I'm not very good at that thing. I'm going to learn how to do it better. So that is what Amber's going to be doing with us today. She's going to share 5 top tips for how to get better at writing. Amber is a professional copywriter. She also goes under the Wild Wordsmith, and she's also a yoga teacher, copywriter first. And I had the joy of training Amber. She did my teacher training a little while ago. And the power of good writing hit me really hard when Amber did my teacher training. So I'm going to tell you a little story before we dive over to Amber. On my teacher training, they have to write essays. And the essays I ask for aren't to be educational. They're to be more like a diary entry. And they're essays such as the power of breathing or your journey with meditation. every single person's essay that I read, the content is fascinating, because every teacher trainee's journey with meditation, with breath work is fascinating. And everybody had amazing stories to tell. Amber's story was no more interesting in its subject than any of my other teacher trainees. But I would sit there reading 20 essays. And I've noticed with some of them that my mind would drift off mid-paragraph, that it was hard to read. I'd have to go back to the beginning and read it again and discipline myself a little bit to sit and read, nearly 20 essays. And then I would get to Amber's. Same subject material, but oh my lordy, would it be a page turner. And I would read it with such a vivacious appetite for what she had written. And the sentences would lead into the next in the paragraph, and I'd be lost in her writing. And the subject was no different. And what really hit me was that she knew how to write. And the thing that struck me the most was how short her sentences were. So I can tell you this woman is a skilled, passionate writer. So Amber, my lovely, please introduce yourself and what we are here to talk about today.
Oh, thank you. I was getting all a little bit blushy when you were saying that. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Amber. As Laura said, I'm a copywriter. My business is The Wild Wordsmith. I've always loved words ever since I was a child. I'd always be writing the poems for family weddings or anything like that. It was just my greatest passion. It was my way to sort of escape the world and create new ones. So I feel very lucky that I've been able to turn that into a career. I predominantly work with sort of like purpose-led businesses, so whether that's charities or well-being, lots of different, but then there's also some random, like a scaffolder or something every now and again. You can't really be that fussy, can you, when you're self-employed? But yeah, so also as part of my copywriting, I love like teaching people how to write. But I don't really know if that's the way I'd phrase it, actually teaching people how to write, because although I'm going to be giving advice today on tips and everything like that, the thing that I really want to get across is that you don't have to be a perfect writer. It's not about that. And I think that as long as you can write with like passion and integrity, that's what your customers, your students, your clients are going to connect with. So that's actually the thing that I am most interested in teaching people how to sort of, I suppose, access that.
And I think straight away in your introduction, that is 2 essential points I want you to write down: to write with passion and to write with integrity. And, just like when we're teaching yoga, we know it doesn't make a difference if I've got my left and my right's wrong, I forgot a pose. Passion is what our students feel, and our integrity. And I know we said we wouldn't go too deep down to the rabbit hole of AI. That is the problem. It doesn't have your passion and it doesn't have the integrity. It's not your creative thought. So we have 5 top tips to get through. Let's dive straight in with your number 1 on how to write better for your yoga business.
So number 1 is actually what I want people to do before they start writing for their yoga business. So I think my biggest tip that I ever give anyone is to flex their writing muscles. I think that, as you kind of said at the beginning, we can tell ourselves that we're either a good writer or not a good writer. And we were having a little chat before we went live. I think that so much of this is deeply rooted in what we're told as children. At school, you're either a maths and sciencey type of person, or you're an art, literacy, that kind of person. So you can be told really early on that if you don't get the grammar right, if you don't get your punctuation right, or heaven forbid, if you're dyslexic, that you're not a good writer. And I think that when that's stuck in our head, we can get scared of writing. So I think that what I would say is really important and can be, it sounds dramatic, but quite life-changing, is to just start writing, but write for yourself with no agenda. So the thing that I've told so many people, and it's not something that I've created, it's not something I've made up, but it's to do morning pages. So every morning, as part of your morning routine, the first thing you should do is grab your notebook and just write. And that could be writing, I don't know what to write today, I don't know what to write today, over and over again, but eventually that pen will move into something else. So it's just getting used to writing without immediately self-editing, without immediately thinking, oh, this sounds rubbish, or, you know, I haven't spelt that correctly, or anything like that. Just write for you. And whether that's morning pages or journaling, I'm sure a lot of the people watching this are journalists. It often goes hand in hand with being a thoughtful sort of yoga teacher that's very introspective, doesn't it? But even things like carry a little like a pocketbook around with you, and if you see something that you think, oh my goodness, that has absolutely inspired me for a shavasana, write it down. Sit down and write it down. Write down exactly what's in your head. Again, do not self-edit, just write. Get that feel of your, I mean, I know we're going to be typing probably when we're doing our writing for marketing, but just get used to the feel of your pen against the paper again, and just write unfiltered, completely unfiltered writing. And I think that has to be the first step, because I think
there's so many things in that you just said, from even just from I notice I write differently if I'm typing at a computer or if I'm pen and paper. And I think you said that practice of writing, and I'm not a journaler actually, and the idea of morning pages, I am that blank page girl, but I learn through writing. So I'm currently learning to be an astrologer, and here is my written pages. And this was my writing practice the other day. And that's, you know, I'll start with the subject matter. So I was researching, you know, the symbolism of the zodiac sign Cancer. And I know when I start, I'm actually writing what I'm learning, but because it's pen to paper in a big book, soon actually my own voice is coming out and I'm not writing what I'm learning. So I guess, if you're naturally someone that wants to journal or wants to try to journal, writing your own thought, but if you're a yoga teacher and you're like, okay, so today's class, I want to explore the meaning of satya, let me write my morning pages about a subject matter. That feels less intimidating to me to start, that I'm going to write on subject matter rather than my own feelings.
100%, because it is intimidating. And what you said about we write differently when we're handwriting compared to typing is so true. If I'm ever like when I'm writing poetry, I always write it by hand and then I'll type it up afterwards. The typing it up is when I edit. So the raw thoughts that I just want to get what's in here onto the paper, that's always pen to paper. And then
I love that bit then, actually, what you then just said about I'll type up when I want to edit. And I think that as a professional copywriter is, again, a skill that as lay people, we don't think about. We think what I write straight away in a post or a blog or a newsletter or my website, that's what's going to happen, rather than that process of write it all out. Because I noticed someone put in the ChatGPT comments that they write and then like ChatGPT kind of tidies it up so it's not so waffly. But that's a part of the writing process of editing, I guess.
Yeah, it is. And I'll give a few tips about that in some of the other points, actually, because it's such a big part of it.
So point one, flex your writing muscles. Just get into the habit of writing every Sunday, writing every day. You set what that looks like for you. I am a massive fan of committing to something for every day for 100 days, but maybe you write every Sunday or you write 5 minutes every day. But flex that writing muscle, experience the difference between pen and paper, different places in your house, phone, taking notes on the phone. And a computer.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. So number 2 is write how you speak, which is such a big one. And there's a lot of reasons why people might struggle with that. If you come from a corporate background, you might really struggle to write how you speak because you feel like it has to be very professional, even though professional, you know, the idea of something not being professional because it sounds like how we speak is kind of ridiculous, isn't it? But it's that thing that's just in our mind. Or if you come from a teaching in a school background, again, you might feel like it has to be very structured, very sort of perfect, and that you can't put yourself into it. But the thing is, you know, the know, like, and trust factor with our students. How are they going to get to know us through our marketing if there's this big disconnect between the way we're writing, the voice that we're portraying in our marketing, and then when they come and meet us and we sound completely different? So, you know, if you're not that, I see this a lot. I mean, granted, I don't see this as much in the yoga industry, but I see it a lot with, you know, people writing in a way that's like, oh, yes, queen, and stuff like that. But then they do not sound like that at all. And it's just icky, isn't it? So it's so important to, and it's scary because that feels more vulnerable, right? To sort of write in your own voice. It's more revealing. It's raw. So it can be quite frightening, but it's just so powerful when you can do that. And I know that some people, if they do, like I say, come from that sort of corporate or education background, they might not know where to even begin with that. But it's as easy as reading it out loud after you've written it. Just read it out loud. Does this sound like me? No. Okay, let's go back and make it sound like me. Or even, so something that I do a lot with my clients is, and I've actually just done it with Lisa from Iris Hill, who is wonderful, and a lot of you will know of her. So I'm helping her with some work at the moment, and I get her to send me voice notes. So I get her to send me voice notes in the moment when she's surrounded by the thing that we're going to be writing about, so that I can hear the passion in her voice. I can hear the types of words that she uses. And I don't just try, you know, I don't necessarily just translate it from what she said, but I just hear the words that she emphasizes. I hear that rhythm and that pace and all that gorgeous stuff that we're always thinking about when we're teaching. You know, it's all that stuff that is always in the forefront of our mind, and just translate it onto a piece of paper with the words that we're using. So I really think it's as easy as, well, I say that. Obviously, there's some layers that you have to pick through, but I think that by writing and then reading it out and saying to yourself, does this actually sound like something I would say? I feel my personality in it. Is my personality going to translate to someone that doesn't know me, that's reading this for the first time? I think it's really powerful, and it makes you worry less about it being perfect, because someone's going to care less about whether you've got a bit of a grammatical inaccuracy in your caption if it just sounds so wonderfully naturally like you. That's what matters.
And I notice how I'm a terror for typos, absolute terror. And I worry that people will read my stuff and think, oh my God, she's so stupid. I am that girl that will write the wrong there. I know which there, but in the moment I write the wrong one and I don't see it, but I leave my work out there with all of those typos, because I notice in other people's work with typos, if I can hear their voice, I don't even notice their typos. I get their meaning. I can feel them. There was I think she's going to watch this, Eloise, she did my teacher training once, and she has a very distinctive voice, a very distinctive personality. And when I read her essays, I heard her voice in my head. And I think that's when I can hear, it's like you're in my head reading it. And I think, writing using our own words, and I guess, you know, voice type. My phone has the voice type instead of a keyboard. I guess that's a really good place for people to start, maybe seeing what they say and then editing out all the ums and ahs and superfluous words. And I think in yoga, we use words that we don't use in real life. Like one I really notice is the obsession with the word restore when it comes to restorative yoga. Everybody uses restore, but that is not an everyday language when it comes to relaxation. We've never woken up in the morning going, oh, I really need to restore. Like you restore a hard drive or a house. So actually, if we started to use our own words, then there'd be more creative variety if we write how we speak. Because I don't think I ever hear a yoga teacher in a class say, oh, just take a nice restorative breath.
No, that's it. When you're actually speaking and you're in the moment, you're not saying those things. It's when you overthink it that those words that absolutely would not be in your vocabulary normally just shove their way into a blog or something.
And every yoga teacher suddenly sounds the same when they describe a restorative yoga class.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so 1, flex your writing muscles. 2, practice writing how you speak. 3.
Cool. Number 3 is always having a purpose in mind when you're writing. And I don't mean having a call to action, although that's important, but that's not actually what I'm talking about here. I mean, knowing what emotional response that you want to bring out of the reader. That's always anything I write, whether it's for myself or for a client, that's the main thing that's at the front of my mind. How do I want this person to feel by the end of reading this piece of writing?
I'm going to be truthful. My heart just physically sunk when you said have a purpose, because I take it the purposes of, oh no, I haven't been on social media or put anything, or oh no, I need to write. That's not enough of a purpose, is it? Oh no, I need to just send a newsletter or write a blog or go on social media. Okay, so and I know many of you are going to feel the same. We write something on social media because we think we should. Yeah. So when my heart just sank with, oh no, what if I don't know my purpose? Help me through that.
So it's not making it into as big, it's trying not to make that into too much of a big thing. It's just keeping it at, like I said, that very, well, it's not simple, is it? Because emotions are enormous, but just even if it is, I haven't posted anything in a while, that's fine. We all have that. Oh my goodness, I have that. I'll look at my feed sometimes and think, oh, I've not posted this week. Okay, best think of something to post. But just making sure that even if that's how you're approaching it, you still are trying to get an emotion out of someone. So whether that's excitement, intrigue, giving, sort of encouraging them to be a bit more introspective, calming them, and anything at all, just having something in mind, because then that gives you something to drive forward the content, and it actually makes it easier to think about what to write about, because you've got that in mind, and it makes the writing so much more interesting, because otherwise it can just fall a bit flat. If you're not trying to get an emotion out of someone, it is just going to be a bit like, like an energy vampire sort of. Yeah.
And almost, what was the purpose of the post? Yeah, and I can think about this straight away, because I noticed on Instagram, I use my stories a lot more than I use my feed. And I put up a picture yesterday when I've been speaking this week about having a moment in the moment. And I was really enjoying my walk yesterday, and all of the flowers are out, and I had a headache. And I picked some lavender, and I just was smelling the lavender the whole way around on my walk. And by the end of the walk, the headache had gone. And, in the moment, I did just take a cute little picture, because I was dressed up anyway, felt cute, took a picture of the lavender, put that on my stories, because that was easy. But actually, if I'd thought, and I had thought, oh, I should probably put that as a post, but then I'd have had to write something. But in that moment, I had a feeling the lavender was making me feel calm. So if actually the emotional response was to share the same feeling I'm feeling, I can suddenly think of what I would have written, rather than I just drew a blank. But yeah, what's the emotional response?
Yeah, it just connects the dots. And you can think of it as like a conversation. So think about that you're writing something, but imagine that you're having that caption, that blog, whatever it is, and it's a conversation with someone else. And you really wanted to say it is to, for yours, for example, you're having a conversation with someone who is a really stressy, really anxious, uptight person. You want to help them feel calmer. What kind of thing could you say to them to help them feel calmer? And I'm not saying that you use those words, but you use the feeling of those words. And I know that sounds a little bit fluffy, but I feel like people watching this would be like, okay, yeah, I can appreciate that. But it's so much of it, if not all of it, is about feeling. It's just, yeah, just kind of.
But what you just said then about having a conversation, it was very easy for me to just have a conversation with you and say, I was on a walk, I had a headache, I picked some lavender. By the end of the walk, my headache was gone. And I spoke speak to you like I speak, and that could have easily just been written down, and actually there's something there.
Well, that would have been lovely, because as you were talking, I'm imagining it. I didn't even have to see a picture or a video or anything like that. I can see you on that walk holding the lavender, this tiny little sprig of lavender. I can smell the scent, like, you know, it lit up all of my senses when you said that to me. And that's what we're trying to do when we're writing, isn't it? Is to kind of ignite the senses.
Okay, so I think there's so much there in point 3. So it's to have a purpose behind what you're writing, to consider what is the emotional response someone is having to what they're reading, be that your email, be that your blog, be that your social media post, and actually to consider writing as you speak, just like you're having a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Right.
Cool.
Number 4.
Number 4 is to write too much and then strip it back. I think it's so much easier to take things out rather than to stuff them in. So because less is absolutely more in the long term, in the edit. And like you said, when you were giving the really lovely introduction of me at the beginning about the short sentences I use, short sentences are everything. So it's, you know, you can start off with those long sentences. You can start off with the fluff and with the complicated words and phrases and using words, the same word too many times, but then take some time to look at that. If you can actually print it out, that's even better, to be honest, because that is great, because you can just be like circling things. And obviously we're not going to do that for every single caption, are we? Because nobody's got time for that. But I've got an example that I just got up on my on a thing that I posted like a couple of years ago. I did a few things where I did 2 examples of writing, one where it kind of hasn't been edited, and then one where so for this one I was kind of looking at repetition of words and sort of things sounding quite samey, because that's when I'm editing other people's work, that's one of the first things I notice. And I'm actually really bad at it. Even if I'm reading a book, I'm like, oh, same word used in the same sentence, that editor wasn't here. So it's just a tiny little paragraph. So this is if we're writing and not sort of noticing that we're using the same words repetitively, etc. If I want to get your attention, I need to vary my vocabulary. If I am hoping to stop the scroll, my vocabulary needs to work harder. If I don't want you to throw your phone out of the window with my repetitive vocabulary, I need to stop saying if and vocabulary, because it's getting a bit ridiculous now, if you catch my drift. Just not good, is it? So then if we did it knowing that we can use repetition for impact, but finally, so that's what comes into the edit. Find the balance between subtle repetition and monotony. It can be powerful, it can be engaging, but force the same phrase down your reader's throat time and time again, and you'll very quickly lose their interest. And let's face it, no one wants that. So
yeah.
It's a subtle difference, isn't it?
And just the repetition and monotony, the word monotony hit me much harder than repetition, actually. It was more emotive.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, so again, it's kind of coming back to that writing without immediately filtering yourself. Just write it all down. Don't worry about thinking, oh, this doesn't sound very good. Oh, I use that word loads. Oh, all of my sentences are really, really long, because that's when you go back and you just pull it apart and make it a lot snappier. You just want it to be as snappy and impactful as possible. So yeah, that's kind of the summary of that one. I don't know if
we seem to go the opposite way when it comes to writing. We seem to use 3 descriptive words when we could use 1 descriptive word. A gently relaxing, soothing class.
Yeah.
Okay? And then I always
we have to say so much, and it loses the impact when we say too much.
Yeah, that's exactly, and it just makes it harder to read, and everybody is busy. So editing to fewer words, shorter sentences, and less repetition, unless the repetition is chosen as a skill.
Yes, exactly. Unless it's really intentional repetition. I mean, this is you know, all of our words need to be intentional, because you hear a lot of sort of stats thrown around about how our attention is like shorter than a goldfish or something now. So we really have got less time to engage our readers, but like I still write really long captions. I do write long captions, but I know that, you know, not everyone's going to read them, but I know that people do read them and engage with them, because although they're longer, every single word I'm writing counts, and it's been put there to have an impact on the reader. So you can still write a lot of content, but just be careful. Everything has to have an intention, really.
And I still read long captions when they're well written.
Yeah,
it's almost like when you sit down on the sofa to watch one series of a TV show and then you've binge watched 3 because it was good. And it's the same in writing style. So maybe when we're learning, let's keep short and snappy. And then as we're starting to build confidence, maybe adding another sentence or so. And on that one point, something I'm always coming back to in my mentorship is a Brené Brown quote: clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And if you can be clear first rather than clever. And for me, that really comes into like people trying to be too clever, too artsy, too much alliteration in the name of things. Like even, for example, just the name of today's session with you, write better for your business. I didn't like that as a title because it's clunky and it doesn't sound very clever. So I played around with different titles like copywriting skills for your business. And I knew every single other title I came up with sounded more fancy, but had less impact and less people would watch it, because you're like, oh, I'm not interested in copyright. No, write better for your business. It is what it says it is. So I always think, be clear. And if you can be clear and clever, great. With the title for this, I couldn't. I could only be clear. Write better for your business. But then if you can be clear and clever, crack on, but clear first.
Definitely. Absolutely.
All righty. We have our last point.
We have. So this is my favorite one. Approach your writing as if it's music. So this is kind of as you get a bit more confident. So this is as the confidence starts to build. The most wonderful writing that really just hits people right in the heart is writing that has a rhythm. So it's kind of similar to the point that we were talking about before, but it's these different lengths of sentences that almost seem to sort of move in and out like a wave, like lapping against the shore. It's alliteration, but subtle alliteration. It's assonance, so that's when we've got the vowel sounds repeated. It's onomatopoeia. So if you're talking about, I don't know, if you're talking about a class that you're doing in autumn or something, you're talking about the crunch and the crackle of the leaves, and you know, it's just almost like it becomes a bit of poetry in a way. So it's just thinking, how can I make these words feel less flat? And it's by adding things like rhythm and pace, which we all have as yoga teachers. We have that within us because we do that when we're teaching. You know, I think it's very unlikely that there's any teachers watching this who are talking to their students in a very sort of staccato kind of bah, bah, bah way like this, or you know, don't have some like passion and feeling that runs through their voice when they're saying a meditation, or you know, that don't lower their tone when they're going through sort of the shavasana. You know, there's things that that just come so naturally when we're speaking, and it's moving that into our writing so that it sounds lyrical, and it just, if you can do that, that's when your writing is like spectacular. And it doesn't matter at that point if you've got typos, if you've sort of, you know, used a colon when you're supposed to use a semicolon, like yawn, but you know, none of that matters if you can make your words feel lyrical like that. And a great way, again, every single one of my points, I would say a good way to sort of fact check that is by reading it out loud. So when you're reading it out loud, do you naturally sort of have these moments of pause, of emphasis, of sort of where your breath almost runs out a little bit and then it like draws it back in? Like, you know, do you have that when you're reading it out loud? And if not, okay, what can I do to drop in a few little moments of that?
The reading out loud is a great tip, and I think that's something you probably don't notice, where a lot of us do our yoga business work at home on our own. You know, I'm fortunate I have someone who sits with me twice a week, and I notice when she's here, if I'm writing a web page, I read it out to her, but I actually don't think I'm reading it out for anything other than to hear it out loud. But I've never thought to read it out loud to myself, maybe just pretend I'm reading it to the cats. But yeah, I think that's, and because I do, as soon as there's someone there, I will read it out loud and change it. To wrap this up in a little bit of yoga, what you just said reminded me of what I was teaching this morning. I've been reading a really lovely translation of a source tantric text that was talking about Shiva and Shakti as you know, consciousness and the manifestation of energy. And I always use the same symbolism for this as Shiva being like a vase, the container, the potential ready to hold the flowers, and Shakti being like the flowers. This translation I was reading today said that Shiva was like an instrument. You know, I'm a musician, I'm a harpist, so Shiva is the harp. And actually, when I sit behind the instrument, or when a musician comes to their instrument, they are also Shiva. There is the potential, there is the container. We have the musician, we have the instrument. We're writing, we have the paper, we have the pen, we have the person. And then the Shakti is when the energy starts to play the music, and the musician starts to play the instrument, and the music comes, the feeling comes, the sensuality comes. I guess there's that bit of reminding that actually, if we can approach our writing like our yoga, okay, I have the blank page, I have the pen, I have me, I have consciousness and potential. And then I'm going to take a breath and invite Shakti in. I'm going to invite feeling. I'm going to invite the artist, the lyricalness, the spelling, the magic power of words in, and just see it as an extension of our yoga.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which brings me right on to the fact that you do have a fabulous offering as well, which is a yoga, writing, and art and creative day. I would love Amber to share this with you, because I adore Amber, and I have learned a lot from being with Amber. Another human being I adore is Lisa Gardner, aka Iris Hill. And these two people are coming together to lead one day retreat on finding your voice, finding your creativity, and it's for yoga teachers and writers and artists. So I'd love you to share about that, because I think if anyone's loved this with you today, working with you in person would be very special.
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely love that. So yeah, so Lisa and I are coming together on Saturday, the 28th of October. And it's a creative development day retreat. So it's, yes, going to be a lovely opportunity for you to just indulge in a day for you, but really at its core, it's a bit of a CPD more than anything. So, but in a very lovely, juicy, wonderful, creative, dreamy way. So we're going to work through some different creative practices. So there will be, of course, yoga. There's going to be some incredible free-spirited watercolor well-being art practices that Lisa will be running in there. If you haven't connected with Lisa before, she's just a marvel of a human.
And you don't have to be remotely good at art to love her workshops. I get scared of the idea of even a coloring pen, but working with Lisa is phenomenal. I've maybe been to 4 of her sessions, just amazing.
It's incredible. You absolutely do not have to be an artist in any way, shape, or form. That's not what it's about. It's just about using practices like art, like writing, like movement to unlock the stories that we all have within us, but sometimes various reasons, various emotions, various pressures can build on top of them so that we can't quite reach down and take hold of them. So it's going to be very lovely. It's going to be in Owlsbury, I can't pronounce the word, Owlsbury Parish Hall, which is near Winchester.
That's Hampshire, for those of you that aren't local. Winchester's beautiful. There's loads of Airbnbs. Come spend the weekend in Winchester.
I know, it's so lovely. It's a really nice hall as well. So yeah, we'll be working through again with like the writing practices. As we've talked about the whole time today, you know, there is no such thing as a bad writer. So that's one thing that I would like everyone to remember, but especially for this day retreat, it's not about coming and doing some sort of really strict writing practices or anything like that. All of the practice that we'll do will be incredibly sort of that wild, free kind of perspective, just to get the words out of us that want to come out, basically. And then hopefully you'll leave with that confidence, that inspiration, that motivation to go and do lots of creation for your own business.
No, thank you for sharing that. I know it'll be a magical day. I love you both. And thank you for sharing our top tips. 1, flex that writing muscle, be it journaling or like me, you know, whatever you're learning, write on it. 2, what was 2?
2 was writing how you speak.
Oh, yes. I was like, my notes say words used. Yes, writing how you speak. Writing, number 3 was actually having a purpose behind your writing, even if that's what's the emotional response I want someone to have. Think of it like a conversation. Then editing your words. So maybe writing on paper if you can, then typing it up, saying less words, being clear, and then over time, letting that extend. And then 5, when you're starting to get a little bit more confident with that, looking at the lyrical nature, the phrasing, the use of vowels, the use of some alliteration, of rhythm, of pace within it, and approach it like your yoga and practice. And, you know, I think it's fear of judgment that is one of the biggest problems. But once you start putting out your true self, watch how people resonate with it differently. And they'll say, that was just what I needed to hear today. And then start to hear how your imperfect words are touching people's sensitive soul. And then just trust that. Amber and I will jump into the comments. I will share a link in the top of the post and in the comments to Amber and Lisa's day retreat. It will be magical. They're both amazing at creativity, and creative development day will be epic. Amber, thank you so very, very much. I know what next week's session as well, we're going to be looking at how to design a beginner's course. Thank you, my lovely. I will stop our live now and I will catch you all soon. Bye for now.